The content, language, and opinions expressed in tonight's show are solely those of the original host and its contributors. The content, language, and opinions do not necessarily represent those of WAAR Radio, the WAAR Radio staff, or other hosts connected to this radio station or shows.
DateLine. Headline breaking news with record-breaking snark. DateLine. Disneyland.
It's a small world after all.
One of the top conservatives on social media, Ana Maria Perez, made a great correlation a few days ago. To be honest, I should have caught it myself.
Shame on you.
I know. It's my job.
Right.
Ana Maria noted that the measles outbreak spreading across the United States was caused by President Obama's lawless immigration policies that increased children being sent by their parents alone to the United States for asylum by over 1,200%.
You talk about reckless and irresponsible. Wow.
This watershed influx started back in early 2014. So you may be asking, how does this correlate to the outbreak we are seeing now?
And I don't know the answer to that.
A statement out of the California Department of Public Health says that at least 58 of the cases of highly infectious disease in the state have been linked to the Disneyland cluster. More than a dozen other cases have been confirmed in 13 other states and in Mexico.
That's the fact, yeah!
Public health officials suspect it began when, quote, an infected person from outside the United States visited Disneyland in Anaheim, California between December 15th and December 20th.
Oh my God.
I know what you liberal loons are saying. Trying to tie the recent measles outbreak to the illegal immigrant children is, well... It's a card you losers like to play all the time, but it was the far-left website Slate that pointed out that there was an outbreak of measles at the detention centers in their July 3, 2014 article called A Public Health Crisis at the Border. In the article, they exclaimed that there was an outbreak at the detention facilities for the children of measles and smallpox.
Oh my God!
For those of you who didn't know, measles was officially declared eliminated in the United States in 2000 after decades of intensive childhood vaccine efforts.
That's a fact, Jack!
Now, let's go back to the highly publicized Murrieta, California bus standoff last July. Local citizens in that little California town refused to let the federal government dump these children in that community for many reasons that include the news of diseases being rampant at the processing stations in Texas where they were sent from in buses.
Hard to comprehend, but that's true.
Since a blockade by protesters forced 3 busloads of immigrants to turn around from Murrieta, government officials back then declined to provide information about the movement of those immigrants.
Well, I think it's outrageous.
This administration refused to say where these kids who might be carrying contagious diseases ended up.
This is the most transparent administration in history.
Quiet.
Now take out Google Maps if you are not familiar with the Southern California area. The city of Murrieta is less than an hour drive from Anaheim, where the outbreak supposedly started. And the closest detention facility to Murrieta is in Santa Ana, California, just minutes away from Disneyland.
Hello.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see what and who caused this latest danger to our country, and in specific, our children and their health.
Duh!
So with this new outbreak of measles within our sovereign borders, a disease that was eradicated from this country, but is still inflicting kids in poorer nations, I would just like to thank you, Barack Obama, for fundamentally transforming America into the third world.
Piece of shit.
DateLine. Fear-mongering 101. Coming out of the Environmental Protection Agency are some damning memos that shows how dishonest they have had to be to propagate the hoax of global warming.
Shame on you.
Sidebar. For those of you environmentals listening out there, I use the term global warming because that is what you fools were calling it when you started this Chicken Little charade.
But chicken.
No, I said Chicken Little, but I like that too.
Okay.
Just because the facts show that you are all lying about the globe getting warmer doesn't mean you can replace the term global warming with the benign climate change tag just to further your ridiculous, baseless, and factless claims of environmental destruction.
Get to the point.
Back to the EPA.
Get going.
Just another arm of this thug administration that has already cost hundreds of thousands of people their jobs by the crush of ludicrous regulations has been exposed not only as a bunch of liars, but hateful fearmongers.
You disgust me.
These damning memos have been obtained by attorney and senior fellow at the Competitive Enterprise Institute, Chris Horner, through a Freedom of Information Act request. As usual, the most transparent administration in history,
This is the most transparent administration in history.
What's about you?
had to be sued to let the American people know what they not only have been doing behind closed doors, but have been getting paid by us to do so.
Outrageous!
The fact that former EPA Chief Lisa Jackson was using a secret email account with the alias Richard Windsor proves how dishonest this tactic was.
That's the fact, Jack!
A memo sent around the top agency officials at the EPA in March 2009 could already see that global warming was becoming more and more obviously a myth to the public, and decided to use scare tactics to further their regulatory Armageddon.
Domestic terrorists.
One memo states, quote, "Polar ice caps and polar bears have become the climate change mascots, if you will, and personify the challenges we have in making this issue real for Americans. Most Americans will never see a polar ice cap, nor will most have the chance to see a polar bear in its natural habitat. Therefore, it is easy to detach from the seriousness of this issue. However, if we shift from making this about the polar caps and about our neighbor with respiratory illness, we can potentially bring this issue home to many Americans." And the memo continues, "There will be many opportunities to discuss climate-related efforts this year. As we do so, we must allow the human health argument to take center stage."
That is so much crap.
So since the facts about the global temperature flatlining for the last 17 years and the cries that hurricanes like Katrina in 2005 would become the norm were also fallacious, the EPA will not only try to scare the American people with more false flags, they will go after your children as well.
That's terrible.
More of those memos pointed their people at the EPA to scare parents into thinking that climate change will threaten our children's health in many ways, but top of the scare list was giving them asthma.
That's a bunch of malarkey.
This is your prototypical liberal modus operandi. They can't convince the people with logic and facts, so they'll make up some phony talking points that scare the bejesus out of people and then threaten the children just to further their bloodthirsty quest for ultimate power over our lives.
It's a disturbing pattern.
Now is the time to put a stop to agencies like the EPA that waste taxpayer money on issues that the states are better equipped and better qualified and more knowledgeable about to truly bring about improvement in the lives of the American people.
Amen, brother. Amen.
DateLine. Capitol Hill.
Needs an enema.
They do too?
Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more. With the disgraced Attorney General Eric Holder heading towards the exit, don't get too happy. President Obama has basically nominated Eric Holder's mini-me.
He is exactly like you in every way. Except 1/8 your size.
Breathtaking. I shall call him Mini-Me.
U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, Loretta Lynch, who is Holder with a wig on, is on track to be confirmed by the Republican saps in the Senate.
Say it ain't so.
As usual, Obama not only nominated someone who is like kryptonite to the GOP, but a double dose of kryptonite. Obama has a penchant for nominating women to posts knowing that the Republicans still fall for the war on women fallacious talking point and won't dare reject a female for any position no matter how incompetent or wrong for the job that she is.
Oh, no.
And now that he has nominated a black woman in Lynch, the GOP is doing cartwheels to find the least repugnant opinions that she has to testify to sell her to the people. The same people, you and I, who voted for them to stop these social activists in positions of power in the Obama administration. Well, she had the gall to claim that she will be guided by the Constitution.
Say what?
Don't believe me, huh? Let her tell you.
I pledge to you today and to the American people that the Constitution, the bedrock of our system of justice, will be my lodestar.
Okay.
Lynch makes this ludicrous claim even after a history of flouting the Constitution in her career as a district attorney in a crusade for social justice.
You know, that's one of the problems with American politics.
Just as Eric Holder, as he has ran the Department of Justice into the gutter over the past 6 years.
You disgust me.
And on the same day that she praised the Constitution, she then turned around and backed the president's illegal and unconstitutional executive amnesty.
It's outrageous.
She then claimed waterboarding was torture and illegal.
Come on now.
I, my friends, think this is great. She can now prosecute Barack Obama as he is the commander-in-chief of all the armed forces and has his Navy SEALs trained by getting waterboarded. Lynch can now incarcerate Obama for torture.
Hello.
Yeah, liberal hypocrisy strikes again.
It's a disturbing pattern.
So for those of you keeping score at home, throwing water on the face of a vicious, psychopathic killer terrorist, bad. Vaporizing American citizens with drone strikes, not so much.
It's incredible.
You got it. When asked by Texas Senator Ted Cruz whether it is constitutional for the U.S. government to use drone strikes to kill an American on U.S. soil even if the individual does not pose an imminent threat, and just like her puppet master, Eric Holder, when asked the same question by Congress, she tiptoed around the answer and did not give what should be an obvious no.
Oh my God!
So it's plain to see that this lover of the Constitution, like Eric Holder and future boss President Obama, the Constitution is good when it suits them, and when not, more on the nomination of Loretta Lynch later in DateLine. Stay tuned. DateLine. The Department of Defense. The most well-known Secretary of Defense in the history of the United States. What's his name?
I don't know.
Oh yeah, it's still bumbling Chuck Hagel.
He's a moron!
Even though he was fired last December, he is still running the day-to-day operations of the United States military. This is the man that had such a horrific confirmation hearing that the rhinos in the Senate postponed the hearing until nobody was paying attention just to confirm him anyway.
Hard to comprehend, but that's true.
But Hagel will be out as soon as his replacement is confirmed by the GOP wimps on the Senate Armed Services Committee. In 2 days from now, they will be holding a confirmation hearing to consider Ashton Carter to be the next Secretary of Defense.
Anyone? 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 Anyone?
I'll tell you who that is. Carter was the Deputy Secretary of Defense for 2 years between 2011 to 2013. But before that, he was the bag man for the DoD. He was the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisitions for procurement of all technology, systems, services, and supplies, bases and infrastructure, energy and environment, with more than $50 billion of an annual budget for research and development. That's right. He was another in a long line of Obama bagmen doling out our hard-earned tax dollars to defense contractors who won no-bid contracts because they were donors to the Obama campaign.
I'm shocked.
And for all you Occupy Wall Street loony liberals out there who are still waiting for change you can believe in, yes, Ashton Carter also worked for Goldman Sachs.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
But do you want to know the real reason Carter is taking over as SecDef?
Yes.
Carter's predecessor Hagel had major reservations about releasing the Taliban 5 in the terrorist swap for the deserter Bo Bergdahl.
That's the fact, Jack!
He only signed off after major pressure from Obama's top advisor, Valerie Jarrett.
Oh, no, come on now.
After that blew up in the face of the administration and the paid liar Susan Rice stepped in it again,
Sergeant Bergdahl wasn't simply a hostage. He was an American prisoner of war, captured on the battlefield. He served the United States with honor and distinction.
Lies.
Hagel refused to sign off on any more terrorists being released for fear that some of those Islamo-loonies would be going after our soldiers once again. An administration official was quoted as saying that Hagel didn't want his name on the release papers of a terrorist that ended up killing more U.S. soldiers. And that is why Hagel got fired. Since his firing, he has been rubber stamping all of the Obama administration's terrorist releases as he has been castrated by Jarrett.
Ouch!
It's a sad day for the United States when the Secretary of Defense, the person in charge of keeping not only our country safe but making sure our brave men and women in uniform are safe when on the battlefield, is a person that is brought on only for one reason, and one reason only: to rubber stamp Obama's feckless and reckless releases of upper echelon terrorists from Guantanamo Bay.
Shame on you.
And he puts our soldiers at risk as well as our allies just to placate some pie-in-the-sky campaign promise from 2008.
Shame on you, Mr. President.
Why doesn't Obama just cut out the middleman and appoint the person who is really calling the shots for our defense? How does Secretary of Defense Valerie Jarrett sound? Fact of the matter is, President Obama wants a Secretary of Defense that is nothing but a yes man, because his one and only goal is to close Gitmo and give Guantanamo Bay back to his fellow communists, the Castro brothers.
Las banderas de la revolución y el socialismo.
DateLine, Disneyland, Part 2. As we stated earlier, conservative blogger Ana Maria Perez made the correlation between the measles outbreak in the U.S. that's concentrated in Anaheim, California, to the tidal wave of immigrant children from Central America last summer. No, it's not. It's just logic.
Absolutely, positively, unequivocally.
Detailed in the first half of DateLine was how the immigrant children that were diagnosed to have measles in the Texas holding centers were then shipped to Murrieta, California and other places on buses and most likely moved to Santa Ana just miles away from Disneyland. But what we left out was what happens when these children got to the Santa Ana Processing Center.
Get to the point.
As per immigration standard procedure, these children will be assimilated into the general population in several ways. They will be sent to relatives who already live in the U.S. or live in shelters where some get schooled inside the shelter or some who get sent to public schools.
Well, I think it's outrageous.
And besides these children that might be infected with measles being sent to our public schools to infect our kids, the adults that traveled thousands of miles with them to the U.S. border could be infected as well.
Oh my God.
It is not rare to have some unaccompanied minors traveling with some adults that are not related to them into the U.S. crossing the border. This is a recipe for disaster when you are talking about communicable diseases, especially when you consider this administration is so epically incompetent.
Did anybody count on the utter incompetence of this administration?
Nobody can assume that ICE didn't let a measles-infected child from Central America into the local school system in Santa Ana without having been properly tested. And if you consider the Obama catch-and-release policy for illegals traveling to the United States, this has set a dangerous precedent at the INS. When in doubt, catch and release.
Oh my God!
Now, I don't want you out there to think that we here at DateLine don't have a heart and don't have the best interest of these children at heart.
Okay.
But President Obama didn't have the children's best interest at heart when he arrogantly tried to illegally write immigration policy with one stroke of the pen because there have been so many reports of deaths along the thousands of miles of desert needed to travel, as well as the rapes and kidnappings from the scum of the earth, the coyotes who smuggled them.
Shame on you, Mr. President.
And what is infuriating to us here in the media on the right is the lamestream liberal media who, last summer, reported 24/7 about these poor children immigrants at the detention facilities, have all but forgotten their own news reports of these kids infected with measles, now with the current outbreak in Anaheim.
It's a disturbing pattern.
So it takes people like Anna Maria, us here at WAAR Radio, and the conservative media to shout from the rooftops when the liberal media tries to pull the wool over the low info among us.
Right on!
This travesty of executive amnesty has not only endangered the lives of the kids sent thousands of miles with dangerous smugglers, but have endangered our kids here at home. And why?
I don't know.
Because Obama and the Democrats want to add voters to their base. Plain and simple. Callous as it sounds, the left will destroy the country just to further their twisted ideology.
Outrageous! Outrageous!
And that's Dateline, Part 2. We'll be back right after the FNC news break with Part 3.
Say what?
Oh yeah, there is so much breaking news deserving snarkification that we've extended Dateline this week.
You got a problem with that?
I don't. Do you? Stay tuned. Dateline, the culture of corruption in Washington, D.C.
This town needs an enema.
As we stated here on Dateline just a few weeks ago, the corruption surrounding the Obama Cosa Nostra goes back to its days in Chicago. To recap, current top White House advisor to President Obama, Valerie Jarrett, hired unqualified Michelle Obama for a newly created position at a Chicago hospital that then paid her over $300,000.
Champagne wishes and caviar dreams.
And of course, this was a payoff for the then State Senator Barack Obama funneling state cash to the hospital. So when the Obama administration gave a no-bid contract, something they raked Bush over the coals for, and claimed they'd never do, when they gave a $600 million no-bid contract to the CGI company to build the Obamacare website, it smelled to high heaven.
Ew. It smells like pee.
Actually, it smells a little more like
chicken.
But we'll agree to disagree.
Right.
So tell me, people, Who was shocked to find out that an executive at CGI was a college BFF of Muchel's?
Anyone? 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 Anyone?
Thought so. Tony Towns Whiteley has been tight with the First Lady since their days at Princeton Law School, and it finally paid off for Towns Whitley. Not only did her company get the no-bid contract, but it pocketed the cash for a website that was such a disaster, even the most ardent Obamacare supporters in the media called the website a joke. If it didn't cost you and me in upwards of $600 million, I just might laugh too.
Okay.
But this is just another example of many of crooked crony capitalism coming out of the Obama administration.
Well, I'm not a crook.
Right.
But the Obamacare website scam is not the end of the road for Muchel's buddy skimming money off the taxpayers.
Say it ain't so.
Even after CGI got fired after the disastrous Obamacare rollout, even after state exchanges like Massachusetts and Vermont fired these incompetent grifters, the IRS just hired them last week for a contract worth more than $4.5 million.
Say what?
Oh yeah. While 92 million people are out of work, many of them who voted for Hope and Change, the company with close ties to the First Lady and has executives that donated to Obama's campaign, will always feed at the pork-laden D.C. corruption trough, because this administration is rotten from head to toe. Glorious will be the day that everyone from this corrupt administration gets locked up. From Don Obamorleone to the capo di tutti capi at the IRS.
What have I ever done to make you treat me so disrespectfully?
DateLine, Capitol Hill
Needs an enema.
Part 2. As we stated in the first half of DateLine, Eric Holder's replacement as Attorney General is just a shorter version of him with a skirt on.
Oh, nah, come on now, baby.
Hey, I calls him like I sees him.
Okay.
And in her testimony of all of the many scandals infecting this lawless administration, she played dumb just like Holder.
Duh!
She feigned ignorance in the much-publicized multiple IRS scandals that just last week had evidence implicating the DOJ in the massive cover-up. So she is supposedly getting ready to take over the reins of the Department of Justice to be the top cop of the nation, and she doesn't even know that they are now co-conspirators in the IRS targeting of conservative groups and Republican donors.
Hard to comprehend, but that's true.
Either she is a blithering incompetent,
Did anybody count on the utter incompetence?
Or she is lying to the committee.
Lies.
Yeah, that sounds just like Eric Holder's mini-me, all right.
Right.
She even has his penchant for only attacking the people on the right. In November of 2011, Republican Congressman Darrell Issa sent a letter to Loretta Lynch in Brooklyn where she was the United States Attorney and expressed his concerns about a former ACORN group, New York Communities for Change, and its, quote, fraud through its participation in the Occupy Wall Street protests, unquote. Issa then asked Lynch to investigate the fraud by this progressive nonprofit group. Lynch, of course, never investigated them.
I'm shocked.
But she has a history of failing to go after progressive-leaning nonprofit groups. In 2013, she testified before the Moreland Commission, a group that was to investigate corruption, by detailing her successful prosecution of several corrupt New York public officials. Of course, she successfully indicted Republican Representative Michael G. Grimm, but despite numerous allegations of fraud by Representative Gregory Meeks, Democrat from New York, and his connected nonprofits, Meeks was never indicted by Lynch even though he was subject to a House ethics investigation.
Shame on you.
So as you can see, This nominee for Attorney General is just another social justice avenger. But what do you expect? She was hand-picked by President Obama's race-bait czar, the Reverend Al Sharpton.
Oh my God.
But that shouldn't surprise anyone. She is just another Democrat shakedown artist like Sharpton and Holder. In 2012, as U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, she orchestrated a settlement with the bank HSBC when they were accused of knowingly allowing Mexican drug cartels to launder money and of allowing violations of economic sanctions against countries including Iran, Libya, Sudan, and Cuba.
Outrageous.
Lynch shook them down for $1.9 billion and allowed the bank to skate on criminal charges by paying the government off to avoid prosecution. And with this experience with Mexican drug cartels, she then glossed over Eric Holder's obvious lead role in the Fast and Furious scandal, even though just this week, former CBS reporter Cheryl Atkinson has sued the DOJ for $30 million for hacking her home and work computers over her investigation into the bloody gun-running scandal orchestrated by Holder and President Obama. Not only did they violate her privacy and civil rights, but Eric Holder violated her First Amendment right to free speech and the press.
We avow the First Amendment. We stand with that and say that people have a right to have a gun to protect themselves.
Well, you're half right, Ms. Pelosi.
You're a moron!
She then laid her support for illegals working here legally when she said,
Well, Senator, I believe that the right and the obligation to work is one that's shared by everyone in this country, regardless of how they came here. And certainly if someone is here, regardless of status, I would prefer that they be participating in the workplace than not participating in the workplace.
Say what?
So this lover of the Constitution, not only does she believe that illegals should work legally, also agrees with the president's illegal executive amnesty. The Republicans on Capitol Hill who made Eric Holder the first ever cabinet member in history to be held in contempt of Congress and have been blasting him in inquiries on the Hill and have called him out on his blatant criminal activities during his disgraceful tenure as head of the Injustice Department have now lost their backbone.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
When it comes to Lynch. And why? Because she's an African-American woman. This is the only reason the rhinoceroses like Utah Senator Orrin Hatch are leaning towards confirming another Eric Holder.
Shame on you.
By the way, that's my term, rhinoceroses. They are Republicans in name only that are way past their expiration date. So just because Barack Obama plays the race card and the war on women card, the Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee will vote to confirm her.
You disgust me.
Do you really think that if the next Republican president nominates Condoleezza Rice to a position that needs confirmation, that the Democrats in the Senate hearings will bend over backwards to be nice and confirm her after years of bad-mouthing her?
No. No.
I didn't think so either. If these spineless Republicans confirm Loretta Lynch for no other reason than her gender and her race, they will confirm that this administration has degraded this country into nothing but a political correctness petri dish and not one of serious people put in serious positions to protect the people of the United States from serious threats.
Mr. President, this is ridiculous. There is no plan.
DateLine. Bitch slap of the week. What some might call the most satisfying part of DateLine is here.
Dynamite!
This is where we administer instant justice. No media disinformation, no liberal spin, facts presented, and retribution given. This week's winner of the Bitch Slap of the Week The White House Intelligentsia. This administration, as detailed in last week's Ascend Conservatism show, is an unmitigated embarrassment from the lowest levels all the way up to the president.
But let me.
Quiet.
But sadly, President Obama is not the bitch slap winner this week. He can't be bitch slapped every week.
Okay.
Even though he deserves it.
That's the fact, Jack!
It's the spokespersons that have made the White House talking points, those of many face palms by the press, and the dumbfounded American public.
Oh my God.
Let's go back to Obama's first press secretary, who we will let Republican Congressman Darrell Issa introduce.
Their paid liar, their spokesperson.
Now, I would bitch slap the president's first paid liar, former press secretary Jay Carney, but Joe Scarborough verbally did that already.
On scandals instead of the economy.
Wait, no,
Wait,
Jay,
Joe,
that doesn't work. No, is that the truth or not, Jay? Is that the truth or not? You said, Jay, that this was limited to Cincinnati. That wasn't true.
No.
I want to talk about the economy, but talk
to
me.
Chance,
Don't
Joe.
give me talking points, because that doesn't work
Joe.
on this show. And you've been here long enough to know it doesn't work on this show.
Okay.
So answer my question, and then let's talk about the economy.
When you get to the question, I'll answer it. Here it is. What we said all along.
I gave you the question, and you decided to fight me, Jay. So stop your games with me. We've known each other for too long. I'm not playing your games. I'm not somebody you talk down to from your podium. Answer my question, Jay.
Come on, what's the matter with you?
That's right. Even one of the few sane people on the Left Wing Nut Network, MSNBC, got sick of Carney's lies and obfuscation.
Diversion, subterfuge.
Besides this, Carney was the first to degrade the presidency into a chief executive that is supposedly so out of touch with reality, he gets his intel from, wait for it, the TV news.
We learned about them through the reports.
And of course, his replacement, Josh Earnest, is no better.
I'm shocked.
Not only is he a pathological liar, par for the course for this administration, but he has taken delusional to another level. While the Middle East is on fire, Iran is about to go nuclear, our first ambassador in the last 30 years got assassinated, Al-Qaeda flags flying over our embassies, the terror army ISIS running across Iraq and beheading not only journalists but children, Ernest claims that Barack Obama's foreign policy is a success on the global stage.
Say what?
It's true.
I think that there have been a number of situations in which you've seen this administration intervene in a meaningful way that has substantially furthered American interests and substantially improved the tranquility of the global community.
Come on, what's the matter with you?
But that's not the only grating aspect of this vaudevillian group called the Obama Mouthpieces. Obama National Security Spokesman Tommy Vietor, who, in the face of our 4 heroes being killed in Benghazi, embarrassed himself and this administration and the country with this childish response to a simple question.
Dude, this was like 2 years ago.
What?
Dude, this was like 2 years ago.
Of course, the one that really deserves a good ass whooping is the Deputy National Security Advisor for Strategic Communication for President Obama, Ben Rhodes.
That's true.
He is the one behind the White House and State Department's cover-up of the truth behind the attack on Benghazi, and he is the one who wrote the memo that was pure fiction, that was an intentional lie to the American people who deserve the truth.
Absolutely, positively, unequivocally.
But one of the most recent jokes of a spokesman for this ridiculous executive branch is the principal Deputy Press Secretary Eric Schultz. He not only claimed that the Taliban is not a terrorist group, but an armed insurgency.
That is without a doubt the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, the same Taliban that entered a Pakistani school last December, all wearing suicide vests, and slaughtered 141 people, 132 of them were children.
You disgust me.
Yeah, disgust me too. Just listen to this ignoramus.
The Taliban is an armed insurgency. ISIL is a terrorist group.
Come on, what's the matter with you?
Not only that, Schultz went full retard in the same press briefing and invented a new terrorist group. Like we didn't have enough already.
Right.
He invented the terrorist group, the Taliban.
Nah, baby.
No, serious.
The Taliban.
Say what?
The Taliban.
You imbecile.
That is a new offshoot of the Taliban. It's a cross between terrorists and the Teletubbies. And what was Schultz's boss's reaction when he tried to clean up the mess the next day?
Consider the Taliban a terrorist organization or not?
They do carry out tactics that are akin to terrorism. They do pursue terror attacks.
So let's give Josh Earnest a logic lesson. If it walks like a duck, and it talks like a duck, and it wears a suicide vest, it's a freaking terrorist. Now let's move on before I get an aneurysm over these idiots.
Okay.
Now, as we stated earlier in DateLine, the president likes to appoint women in positions that they have no qualification to be in. It's just that Obama assumes, because they are women, they can spew whatever gibberish they want.
Wiggle whip flop flop. Griggle grubble. Clip jip jip.
And the press and Republicans won't call them out on it. And where is our female producer to bitch slap the spokesperson for the United States Department of State, Jen Psaki, and her ignoramus statement?
Get going.
So let's hear a female member of the Obama Confusion Illusion and her interaction with Fox's Megyn Kelly.
I just want to ask you whether you are actually saying that we should just trust this group because they now say, never mind all that chanting about death to America.
Well, I think our actions make clear that we don't just trust. I think it was important to note that that was something that was stated publicly. Now, there's no question.
So was the death to America
There's been a great deal of unacceptable violence. There's been a great deal of unacceptable violence, rhetoric, everything you've said. There's no question about that. But we're in a situation that is very tense. It's fluid. We have to see what's going to happen on the ground in Yemen. We don't know yet what's going to happen there.
Quiet.
So let me get this straight. A terror group chants death to America, then overruns that government. Then we call them pals and trust anything they say?
Oh my God.
Unfortunately, these bitch slaps aren't loaded with a palm full of reality. These dolts surely need it.
Yes.
Hey, Madam Producer, where are you going?
I don't know.
Stick around. Your work is not done.
Okay.
Psaki's underling, Marie Harf, deputy spokesperson for the State Department, dumbfounded viewers in this interview when she, as all of the other mealy-mouthed in this administration, from Obama to Secretary of State John Kerry, refused to call Islamic terrorism exactly what it is: Islamic terrorism.
It's a disturbing pattern.
And what's Harf's excuse?
But it's not the only kind of extremism we face.
Good one, Madam Producer. That must have hurt your hand.
Yes.
Please explain to me what the heck is Harf talking about? What are the other types of extremism? Is there an Amish extremism we need to worry about?
That's retarded, sir.
Hey, she started it. Now, I would call her a moron, but she wears glasses. She must be smart.
No. No.
Jeez, it's hard to comprehend so many people in this administration with self-induced retardation. While bitch slapping these blithering idiots is not only well-deserved, it's a hell of a lot of fun. But it truly is pathetic and sad. These people represent our government. When we contacted the White House intelligentsia and asked for a comment about these sophomorish nincompoops winning the Bitch Slap of the Week award, this was their official response. And that's DateLine for this day, February 2nd, 2015. We'll be back right after these very important messages. Stay tuned.